This is a third generation Dacia Duster. The previous two generations didn't impress me much, but the new Duster is better in every aspect, maybe except for the price. What makes the new Dacia so good that I almost like it, and why did I say almost? Let's find out.
Launched in 2010, the Duster remains pretty much the same size for more than 20 years. It's just over 430 centimeters long, it's just over 180 centimeters wide, the height is still around 165 centimeters, and the wheelbase is just under 266 centimeters. The wheelbase saw the biggest change as it's nearly 2 centimeters shorter than in the previous two generations. But despite this, the designers have managed to make more room inside. In the front there is a few extra centimeters in width, and in the back there is 3 more centimeters legroom. This was possible thanks to the new platform. Other benefits that come with it are the new powertrains and the new mandatory safety systems. Does this mean the end of mediocre crash test results? We'll find out soon when the new Duster will be tested by the Euro NCAP.
Meanwhile, the boot Dacia boasts its capacity is up to 517 liters without the spare wheel, depending on the powertrain option, of course. Models with LPG, with all-wheel drive or with hybrid powertrain have boot capacity between 430 and 456 liters without a spare. LPG or hybrid versions get mini spares, optional, while all-wheel drive gets a full-size spare, and that leaves about 400 liters of space above the false floor.
We can split hair that there are actually styrofoam inserts around the spare wheel, which can be removed and make more room for stuff, and I bet many Dacia owners will do just that. For example, it would make sense to pull out the jack from the side of the boot and fit it under the floor next to the spare. Same with the emergency triangle. These are the kind of details designers could have thought of, but instead Dacia came up with U-clip accessories. At first glance, it makes sense. I guess most of us like gadgets and would be willing to pay for accessories that make the car even more versatile. Also, it's brilliant for the car maker to increase profit margins. U-clip accessories cost between 20 and 50 euro.
For example, here we have a detachable hook, which can be installed, for example, in the cockpit to secure a purse, or maybe on the tailgate to hang a towel or something. Or there is an optional torch which wasn't installed on this car. Other than that, we have 2 standard shopping bag hooks and a 12-volt outlet.
Copper color exterior elements, including the Dacia logo on the tailgate, indicate this is the extreme trim. It's also worth taking a look at the plastic cladding around the car, which is 20% recycled. Those white dots, depending on who you ask, may look like sparkles or like dirt. I'm Team Sparkle and I like it. Do you?
Doors cover the sills, but only partially. It was the same in the Dacia Sandero, which I reviewed during the winter, and there was snow and mud accumulating down there. In the rear, there's really more legroom than in the previous generation. Rear passengers get 2 USB-C ports and another U-clip anchor point on which you could probably mount an accessory cup holder, because the door pockets won't accommodate even a 500 milliliters bottle.
On front seat headrests we have more U-clip accessories, a tablet holder and a bag which could store some notebooks and crayons for your kids, or maybe motion sickness meds and some wet wipes. By the way, the tablet holder is really cheap and I wouldn't risk using it for an expensive device. Also, the antenna turned out to be cheap and it broke when we were wiping the car after washing it for the shoot. There is no armrest or air vents. The backrest splits 40-60, but release straps are hidden under the seatbelts.
While the first and second gen Duster cockpits were utilitarian, it seems like in the third generation there was enough funds to hire someone who understands form as well as function. From second trim upwards or onwards, we get a digital instrument cluster and a 10-inch display with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The dashboard does have a Land Rover Defender vibe. The extreme trim also gets some copper accents here and there on the air vents.
On the plus side, we have physical buttons to operate basic driver assistance systems and air conditioning. The infotainment system is easy to use and allows for more customization than I would expect from Dacia. The storage compartment under the armrest is reasonable size, and the glove box is okay as well. The front door pockets are much more usable than the ones in the rear. The fit and finish is good, and everything from elbow height upwards feels quality. While heated seats were available on Dacias in the past, I think it's the first time Dacia gets heated steering wheel option. The seats have lumbar support adjustment, although I only found it after reading about it on the price list. There is so much space behind the steering wheel that I had to pump the seat up to see through the bonnet. I remember being uncomfortable behind the wheel in the second gen. This is a significant improvement.
But this is where the shortcomings and inconveniences resulting from competitive pricing begin. First, this test unit has broken air conditioning. It works only sometimes. At first I suspected a leak in the system, but then once or twice air conditioning started working, therefore I suspect it's an electronic gremlin. A side effect of the malfunctioning AC was that I found out that the polyurethane upholstery may be easy to wash, but it also doesn't breathe, and after a few minutes of driving on a hot day without AC, you have a wet back and you are stuck to the seat. But let's assume I didn't have a problem with AC. The extreme trim looks cool, undoubtedly, but unfortunately the TEP Micro Cloud upholstery is the only choice here. Other materials don't slide very well on it, so when getting in and out you may find yourself rubbing hard against the seat.
Then we have the digital instrument cluster and infotainment graphics. I understand this is a car built to a price point, so processors on which the system is running may not be top-notch. However, since you can toggle through display modes and use the infotainment system, they should have designed simpler graphics or use more powerful hardware. Instead, we see cost-cutting. Same deal with the cameras. There are 4 of them, but the image quality is like on early Nokia camera phones.
Or the optional U-clip phone holder. There was something similar like this in the Dacia Sandero, and I also complained it was flimsy and badly placed. Even worse here. The phone fell out a few times, I dropped it, and I hit the wiper switch and things like that. There is just not enough place for a phone here. Also, if I had to choose, I'd rather use the tablet holder from the rear, which also happens to fit here, so that's good. I also have an issue with the cubby located above the optional wireless charger. It's flat, there is no guard, so whatever you put in here is going to fall out every time the car starts moving. The cup holders are partially under the armrest, so that's not ideal. And yeah, you can say I'm nitpicking, but this could have been a great car. It looks interesting, it's modern, and it finally doesn't feel like a collection of used Renault parts. For starters, disabling ESA is done right. Dacia and Renault have programmed a personal mode where you can set which of the new mandatory safety systems you want to turn on and off. All you have to do is double press a button on the left side of the steering wheel, and in addition, it's easy to find because the light is on by default and it goes off when you enter the personal mode. Someone thought that although the systems are mandatory, no one in their right mind wants to use them. Bravo Dacia, bravo Renault. Another plus compared to the previous generation, or 2 previous generations actually, is the soundproofing. Dacia has improved it noticeably, or is it actually audibly, or perhaps inaudibly? Well, anyway, the Duster is now much quieter than it used to be.
The engine lineup. There is a choice of 3-cylinder 1-liter and 1.2-liter engines and a 4-cylinder 1.6 power plant. The 100 horsepower 1-liter engine comes with factory autogas or LPG installation. The 1.2-liter units have 130 horsepower and optional all-wheel drive. These are so-called mild hybrids and they come with manual gearboxes. The 1.6-liter engine is a full hybrid. It's the same as in the facelifted Renault Clio. It's mated to an automatic transmission. This test car is a 130 horsepower all-wheel drive version. The promised combined fuel economy is less than 6 liters per 100 kilometers. My best result was 7.5 liters per 100 kilometers, but I didn't use eco mode as the car defaults to automatic mode after each startup. The claimed time from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour is 11 seconds. I managed 11.5 seconds, and it wasn't easy.
And it wasn't easy because the 3-cylinder engine and the 6-speed manual transmission don't seem to talk to each other much. Even after I've driven the Duster for a few days, I'll still get some unpleasant jerks on shifts. And yes, this is also when things fall out of that cubby above the wireless charger. Theoretically, first gear in the Duster has a short ratio and can be used for crawling, but I've tried taking off in second gear and then either I burn the clutch or stall the engine. You have to start in first and then immediately shift to second. Dacia also claims to have improved the suspension and handling, but I still think that on tarmac the Duster drives more like a body-on-frame SUV than a monocoque crossover. I don't mean to say that I expect the Duster to handle like a sports car. No, I'm just simply expressing an opinion. But, like, for example, a Jeep Renegade, which isn't really made for tarmac, when on rougher roads, the Duster wakes up. This is a car for dirt roads where you'll appreciate the soft suspension and slowed steering that doesn't pull the steering wheel out from your hands on every pothole or rut.
Speaking of driving off the beaten path, here's my diagonal approach test. I stop halfway with the wheels on the diagonal with limited traction and then I try to get going again. Here too I had a problem with lack of communication between the engine and the transmission. Okay, you can laugh that I've forgotten how to drive a manual, but the fact is the traction control cuts power and then the engine stalls in first gear. And remember, if the engine stalls, the car goes back to automatic mode and you have to reselect the mode for snow, mud and sand or off-road, in which theoretically all-wheel drive is locked, but in fact the torque is sent back and forth between the front and rear. The Duster performed best in off-road mode. You can see that in snow mode the car tries to gently distribute torque so the car doesn't dig in more, but on my test hill that doesn't work. In mud and sand mode there is a lot of wheel spin, while in off-road mode the car pulls away without much problem. The all-wheel drive Duster has nearly 22 cm ground clearance, more than most of the crossovers on the market. Prices of the Dacia Duster start at €18,950 for the base trim with LPG. The cheapest hybrid will set you back €25,850. The cheapest all-wheel drive version costs €24,650. This test car is an all-wheel drive in extreme trim, and with options it costs €28,825.
In my opinion, the Dacia Duster has always been a car for rural areas, and as one of a handful of B crossovers with all-wheel drive, it remains a cheap alternative to the Jeep Renegade. Because the all-wheel drive Hyundai Kona is a different animal. However, in the city where front-wheel drive is sufficient, but people are looking for equipment as well as ride and handling, the Chinese car makers are giving Dacia a run for its money. This, as well as the shortcomings I mentioned, leave me liking the Duster, but only almost. And what do you think of the Dacia Duster? Are you upgrading from an older generation, or maybe you're considering it for the first time? Let me know in the comment section below.
If you like my sarcastic, down-to-earth and possibly mildly amusing car reviews, join me every Friday at 3 p.m. Central European Time, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video as it helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.